me start that I'm very, very glad to see this kind of debate being held, because I mean, Alberto knows very well that when we started in Italy something like 4 or 5 years ago, we were seen like crazy. Instead, for speaking the truth, but it was not the subject that should be debated. Instead, here we see that very seldom happens that we are all agreeing with the basis of what we are talking about. So there is, usually in the debate there are differences. You know, it's, well, contrary to what my colleague just said, well, I think that, no, instead, here we are speaking the simple truth. And the truth is one, it's not 2 or 3. So, the fact that we are here after 4 or 5 years that we started explaining the basic of the importance of the currency and of the doom that the euro is bringing to our life, well, means that probably there is some foundation, and probably the truth is with us. I was also, it was fun to see the Brexit referendum subject, you know, pretty difficult argument about free trade and so on. Imagine what has been the percentage of the vote expected in Britain if the question was joining the Eurozone. If the UK, instead of deciding to stay within a commercial area or another one, is presented the question of giving back the monetary sovereignty. Probably there was not, it's not possible to have 120%, but it's possible to expect a result like this in terms of against. Why? Because they know very well how and what is the importance of having his own currency. They know very well. And they knew since the beginning when there was a political debate in order to decide whether or not to join the Eurozone. The political debate that vastly was missed in our country. Because in Italy, for example, and I was working in a financial institution, that the debate was absent. It was like this, and it was good for everyone. So, there was no any kind of referendum, but I bet that if ever this kind of referendum would have been held, the result would have been for with a vast majority, because there was no information. What are the advantages of the sovereignty of having his own currency? Well, most you have already heard. But when you raise this kind of subject, there will be always the smart one that raise the finger and say, ha, if having your own currency brings prosperity, then Zimbabwe would be the most rich country in the world. Then there is Venezuela, then there is a lot of other funny places in the world that has their own currency, but they are very poor. So let me put forward a thing. Economy is not like math, but it has its own rule. It's like medicine, for example. Sugar is impossible to say if it's good or bad. It's bad for someone, if you have diabetes, and it's good for other one. If ever you are dehydrated, you need energy. So, to be simple, let's say that in the world there are 3 kinds of countries. There are the country that does nothing, like Zimbabwe. Nothing is the same, whatever currency you express. Is nothing, 0, null, 0. It depends. You can name it whatever, but it's still 0. So it's indifferent which kind of currency, which kind of currency you have if you produce nothing. So it's not a valid argument to say that Zimbabwe or other country ravaged by war with famine or whatsoever could benefit from another currency, because they produce nothing. Then there are a lot of other countries that produce raw materials. Raw materials, oil, iron ore, whatsoever, are expressed in dollars. So, if ever you devalue your currency and you are a raw materials exporter, you don't devalue the raw materials price towards the rest of the world, like Professor Rosa said in terms of the product. That's what happens, for example, in Russia. Russia, big oil exporter, if the price of the oil drops by half, the value of their export drops by half. The currency drops because you can imagine the value of the country as a whole drops, but there is no immediate advantage about this, because the price of the oil remains the same in terms in dollar price. Then there are countries that produce products, and it's Italy, it's France, it's most of the Eurozone. In that situation, currency matters a lot, because, as before explained perfectly by Professor Rosa, it's the price tag that all the rest of the world see. And you can imagine, if ever someone has studied how to become efficient or so on, if you have a factory and you wanted to be more efficient, for example, and to gain 5% of efficiency, you make investment, you make better material and so on. This 5% efficiency can be wiped out by a 5% movement of the exchange rate. So if you have a 40% or 50%, I don't know, imagine what should be the difference of the drachma with the euro. This is the difference of the real economy versus the one that is imposed on Greece. And is not matchable by a real way to be more efficient, because you have to fight with someone that starts with a more aggressive economy than yours. And so the only thing that you have to do is, as explained by Professor Bagnai, to cut wages, but you cannot cut wages in a way to become more competitive, because you have to cut too much, and then you are mired in the permanent depression. So it's fundamentally important to have your own currency, but there are other subjects that makes fundamental to have your own currency. Think about the debt. This public debt. The debt becomes a problem if you have to ask to someone else the money to repay it. If you own your own currency, then it's impossible to default on your currency-denominated debt. What happened to UK in 2008? There was this external shock, you know, US depression, US Lehman things. UK was in the bullseye because his economy was a financial one. So, a financial economy in the middle of a financial crisis. The worst of the worst. If ever UK would have euro, they would have been bust within a year. Instead, what happened? The pound dropped to the tune of 30%, let's say, as a reaction. The Bank of England bought back that debt. Now, Bank of England has something like 25% of the UK debt that can be wiped out. They can decide simply to zero it, because in the consolidated bank balance, they are creditor and they are debitor. They already have monetized their debt, buying it back. Now we have to rely, as mentioned before, on the goodwill of ECB of doing the same. But if they don't want, you are dead. But there is a much more important subject, for me at least, that is the democracy. Probably you have noticed that Spain lacks a government. Since how many months? Does someone care? No. And it's not normal. But it's normal in the Eurozone because the national government is useless. I can believe that there are a lot of movements that rise up in terms of and it's perfectly normal that there are a lot of political movement that rise up, that say that the politicians are paid too much. In a certain reason, in this kind of world, they are right. Because a useless government should be paid to zero. But it's not normal. The government should be entrusted by his people in order to do the best. Should have enormous responsibility. And that's why it could be considered fair to pay a good wage to a politician. But without currency, you do, Mr. Draghi used the right wording. There is the automatic pilot talking about Italy. When he was interviewed, I said, aren't you concerned that maybe there could be some bad people coming at power in Italy, for example, the Northern League, the Five-Star Movement, Berlusconi back? No, I'm not. There is the automatic pilot inside. The automatic pilot. But he was right. Because, and it goes down to the chain, to the majors, to the region, to the representatives of the region. They don't have the power to do nothing. They have only to raise taxes and to cut the expenses. Like this. They cannot think, they cannot do something. They are forced to do what the one that has got the real power, and of course is not democratically elected, wanted to do. So the importance of having a sovereign currency is not only economic, but democratic. And it's something that we have to think also as a matter of national security. Because we should, and I'm ending, imagine what happens if you can think that your country can be effectively shut out from the market if someone that is not from your country decides so. It's a matter of national security, so we have a nuclear weapon in the hand of someone that you are not controlling. And we are talking about, exchanging the money at the airport. No, it's something much deeper. It's democracy, it's national security, and it's future prosperity for us.